Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today we are going to be sewing along the Lola domed handbag by Swoon. I swear, I do not know why I waited so long to make this pattern. It's an older pattern and I swear this is one of my favorite makes I've ever done. It was just such a fun, quick, easy sew with such an adorable outcome. Let me show you some of the features of this bag. So as you can see, she's very, very unique shaped. Just kind of domed, kind of triangular in some ways. She has a top zipper. On the back, we have a small decorative zipper pocket here. On the inside, I have added in my usual slip pocket and decorative zipper pocket here. She actually opens up pretty big for a small bag. What did I use for making this bag? This exterior vinyl was a vinyl I got from Fantastic Customs on Facebook. She does pre-orders for vinyls and this was one of those. My black vinyl is Daytona faux leather from Fabricville. All my hardware is from Emmaline bags. My zipper and zipper pulls are from Blue Calla. Interfacing in this bag, I used the pretty and pink sew foam from Galaxy Customs, and in the bottom I have some Decorative Heavy from Emmaline bags. That's really all there is to this bag. It's minimal materials, it's minimal hardware, and it is such a fun and easy make. I think this is definitely going to be a great seller at my markets. I can't wait to see all of yours. So how about we jump into it and we will go ahead and we will start making this bag.
Right, so you're going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, 3 number 5 zipper pulls, 4 rectangular rings, optional 4 strap ends, and 4 purse feet. You're going to need your 2 main exterior pieces attached to foam, with the foam a 1/2 inch outside of the seam allowances up top, 2 lining main pieces backed with woven interfacing, 2 bottom pieces, your lining piece, your exterior bottom backed with Decorative Heavy as well as foam, a foam piece, your 2 handle pieces. Now I'm adding connectors from another bag pattern, so these are the connectors I'm doing here as I want my handles to flop down. And this is my 2 zipper pocket overlays as well as my slip pocket overlay. Your slip pocket piece and your 4 zipper pocket lining pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and make my straps off camera. There's a class for that down below. So as you can see here, I have already attached my main panels to my exterior panels. I have basted my foam on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and kept it out of the top part where the zipper will attach by a 1/2 inch. Because I'm not using fusible foam, I'm going to go ahead and just use a little bit of double-sided tape to make it so the top of this doesn't flop around. And then to reduce the bulk within this 1/4 inch base, I'm just going to trim away just the foam, not the vinyl, but the foam up to the stitch line as close as I can, just to make it a little less bulky in amongst that seam. All right, so this is what that looks like here. Okay, now for the bottom piece, now the pattern doesn't call for purse feet, but I want to add them in. So from the bottom corners, I am doing 1.5 inches up and 2 inches in and making a mark. Now, if you need a class on how to install purse feet, I do have that down below in the description. All right, so I always like to back my purse feet with a piece of duct tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and baste this to foam in the exact same manner I did with the main panels. Okay, so now we are going to install the exterior zipper pocket. So on our pattern piece, we do have some lines here. All I've done is right here, right at the end of my overlay mark, on my pattern piece, I have cut a little slit and I'm drawing lines into that. And what this does is we can just line this overlay up nice and even with those marks to match the pattern piece. So I'm going to go ahead and put some double-sided tape outside of where we will be stitching the 1/8 top stitch. You can do this with a domestic machine as well. I'm lining my marks up so it's nice and straight. Double checking that it's nice and straight, and then go ahead and take the paper off of the bottom piece of tape and let it flop down. It'll line up perfectly, and we're going to go ahead and top stitch this onto the bag along the outside edge. So as I don't like to have a backstitch line, I am pulling my threads long and working my way around. I did not backstitch. I do have a class on how to do a zipper pocket with this overlay if you need it in a little bit more detail. Now, as I'm about halfway through, I'm going to go ahead and pull my bobbin thread to pull my top thread through to the back, and then continue on my top stitching along the outside edge. Now, as we come to where we started our stitching, you want to make sure that your needle ends in the exact same stitch that we started with. So I hand crank the last couple stitches to make sure I get there. Pull my threads long, hold on to those threads so you can know which bobbin thread to pull. Pull that, form a loop to pull your top thread through, and then go ahead and tie these 4 strands off with 3 or 4 knots. What this does is give us a nice seamless top stitch with no backstitching thread buildup on the front side. Okay, so now that that's done, I like to take my rotary cutter and just start my slits right in the middle here, making sure you're not cutting your overlay. We are just cutting away the fabric in the back. So I'm putting my scissors just underneath of the overlay without cutting the overlay. We're just cutting back the back vinyl there and the foam interfacing. So just like we do with any zipper pocket, you want to cut your V's and then go ahead and cut away that excess bulk to reveal the overlay that we just stitched on to the front. So you want this to be back about 1/4 of an inch or so without cutting through that stitch line. This does not need to be pretty. Nobody is going to see this. It's simply just removing the bulk so we can attach our zipper pocket. So now what we want to do is in that area where we cut it back, we want to put some more double-sided tape, just slightly over 1/8 of an inch away from that opening of that rectangle. This is to keep it out of our stitching seam allowance when we go to top stitch the zipper in place. So put that on the top and bottom, set that aside. Now we'll prepare our lining for our zipper pocket. If your machine does not like double-sided tape, make sure you are using clips here. I have my lining pieces right side up. I'm putting double-sided tape on one of each of the long edges. I also have my zipper tape right side up, and I'm going to put that on top of my lining and stick it down or clip it down. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this in place with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, my lining piece is right side up and my zipper is right side up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my other lining piece and the unsewn part of my zipper I'm going to attach to that. So now our lining panels are right sides together, and stitch that in place. Now go ahead and give the zipper tape a nice press to make it nice and flat. So this is what we have here. Make sure your zipper pull is closing to the left. On our main panel, take off the paper of the top section of our double-sided tape and stick it down nice and even. I find you have great control when you're doing this just to the top, so you have a nice distance between the overlay and the zipper teeth. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and do the same with the bottom. Now you want to make sure that your lining panels are open like this, and you're going to go ahead and we're going to top stitch all the way around that inner rectangle. Once again, pulling our threads long so we can tie them off in the back to not have that top stitch or that back stitch thread buildup. So once again, I have ended in that starting stitch, pulling my threads to the back and tying those 4 strands off. Now in the pattern, this is the front of the bag. I am choosing to make the zipper pocket the back of my bag. Okay, so that is done. So now we want to close up our pockets. So we're going to flip our lining panels down this way. We are going to trim them up nice and even like so. And then we are going to go ahead and clip just the lining pocket piece here, and we are going to stitch around those 3 open edges to close it up. So I like to go as close as I can to where the stitching was for the overlay all the way around. Make sure you're pulling that main panel out of the way so you're not accidentally sewing through that. And then go ahead and trim that up to about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we now have a working zipper pocket. Okay, so now we are going to work on the connectors. Again, this is not part of the pattern. So find your favorite connectors for if you want to do it like me. Mine are from the Aster Bag by Blue Calla. These are my favorite connectors. Swoon also has many patterns like the Donna that have amazing connectors. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about how I am installing these. If you want to see how I do these, you can definitely check out my Aster Bag tutorial where I go into much more detail on how these are installed. So I'm just going to connect my hardware to my rectangular rings. Another great option for these connectors, if you wanted to have your handles flop down like I do, you can do a hidden connector if you're doing a non-fraying fabric exterior of your bag. That's what I love about patterns, is you can go ahead and you can make them your own. So I'm going to use my pattern piece here to decide my placement of my connectors. So at the top of the connector placement that they have on the pattern piece, I've just done a little bit of a 1-inch cutout there and marking it with my erasable pen. And for these connectors, I'm actually going to match it up with the long side right here, right against that line. So these are on a slight angle. It gives it such a nice look. And I'm just going to hold those down with some double-sided tape. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take this to the machine and we are going to go ahead and top stitch these in place. Once again, I am pulling my strands long because I do not want to have that back stitch thread thick section. I really like doing this for the exterior of my bag to give it that really nice, seamless and fluent top stitch line. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all 4 of these connectors in place. So once again, I'm doing my strap slightly different than what's in the pattern. The pattern has it as a handbag strap that has no connectors. The strap's just sewn right to these marks on the bag, but I am making mine a shoulder bag, and I really like strap connectors for that, so my handles can flop down out of the way. Okay, so now that that is done, you can see here I've gone ahead and I've put in a couple of rivets, backed with some Decovil Heavy behind the posts, as well as installed my nameplate. So now we are going to work on the bottom of the bag. So from the 4 bottom corners, we are going to make marks 1/2 of an inch in from the bottom corners. And then we're going to take the front panel of our bag, we're going to match up our centers here of our bottom and of the bottom of the main panel, and we are going to stitch in place from that 1/2 inch mark to that other 1/2 inch mark, not going over either of them, with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, what's different with this bag is we do no top stitching with the bottom or with the zipper panel. So it's going to look like I'm skipping a step because we're so used to top stitching these seams in place, but we are not going to be doing that with this bag. Okay, so that's what that looks like there. We did not go past those 1/2 inch marks. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've already prepared my lining panels. We are doing the zipper overlay just like we did with the exterior, but we're leaving the bottom of the pocket open. I've also done my slip pocket. If you need classes on how I do those, they are down below in the description. So now we're going to take the slip pocket lining piece and the aligning bottom piece, and we are going to do the exact same thing that we did with the exterior panels, marking in 1/2 inch on the bottom corners, matching up that center. The only thing we're going to do different with this is we are going to leave an opening in the bottom of the bag, about 6 inches or so, and we're only going to sew between those marks. So that is done here. We have our opening in the bottom. You can put these 2 panels aside for now. Okay, so I cut my zipper by the yard to 13 inches. What we want to do is mark in from each top side 3/4 of an inch on our back exterior piece. Again, I'm using my zipper pocket as my back piece. Now I am also marking in a 1/2 inch on either side of my zipper tape here. And that is so we can make our zipper stop. So at that 1/2 inch line, you're going to go ahead and fold these down at a 90-degree angle like so on each side. So we'll have all 4 ends of our zipper tape folded down. And then once we have these in place with clips, we're going to go ahead and baste them at this angle with an 1/8 inch of a seam allowance, just in those 4 corners. So that's what this looks like here. Now we want to put our zipper and our exterior right sides together. I have my zipper pull closing to the right, as this is the back of my bag, and we are going to go ahead and evenly distribute the zipper across the top, starting and stopping at those 3/4 inch marks that we marked on the top left and right side of our panel here. It helps to make sure that your hardware is flopped out of the way so you don't accidentally hit it with your needle. And then we're going to go ahead and baste that on with about an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am changing into my zipper foot here. This helps make it so your zipper will not be wavy. And you can get nice and close to the zipper teeth when we go to do that final stitching. So I strongly recommend switching into your right zipper foot for this part. Make sure you put your needle down if you need to move your zipper pull out of the way. Okay, so now we are going to attach the lining. So we're going to take our back lining piece, match up our centers, right sides together with our exterior piece. We are now sandwiching that zipper tape in between these layers. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. The only difference is we are going to make a mark a 1/2 inch in from each side of this back lining piece. And we are going to sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting and stopping at that 1/2 inch line on both sides. So once again, with your zipper foot, this will help get it nice and close to those teeth with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and make it so you have a nice even stitch for a nice straight zipper. I find that using my stiletto, especially with these curvy edges, to hold that fabric in place where we need it to be against that zipper really does help, and it's also a finger saver. Again, place your needle down if you need to move your zipper pull out of the way. Make sure to backstitch at those 1/2 inch marks. Okay, so that is complete. You can go ahead and fold these panels wrong sides together, and from the lining side, go ahead and give this a really good press, being careful not to touch the vinyl. And once again, we are not top stitching this. All right, so now we are going to take our front panels. We're going to do the exact same thing we did to attach it to the other side of the zipper, which I have done here. So this is what that looks like. Now what we want to do is flip our exterior panels right sides together and our lining panels right sides together, kind of pulling them apart. On the exterior piece, go ahead and match up the center to the other unsewn bottom main panel. And once again, we're going to sew this on from that 1/2 inch mark to that 1/2 inch mark, starting and stopping there, not going past those 1/2 inch marks. So it looks something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just in that area we have sewn, not past those 1/2 inch marks, we're going to trim this down to about a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. We're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the lining panels. Okay, so now that's done. So you can see one side of our lining panel, we have the opening in the bottom. That's what we want. Now you want to match up our exterior sides and our lining sides separate from one another. So match up these bottom pointy areas. We'll start with the lining here. And use clips all the way up to the side. So what we're going to be doing here is sewing up here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to make sure we're not sewing into the exterior piece, and right where our sewing line is from attaching the zipper at that 1/2 inch mark, we are going to just sew to that 1/2 inch mark there to close this off. So you should only at this point be sewing through the lining panels. You will not be sewing through the exterior. So you can see right here, kind of pulling them apart, make sure they're all pressed out. Right where on this lining side, you can see where our stitches end from when we attach the zipper. We're going to sew all the way to that mark and backstitch. what this does is it closes up that whole side and won't make it so our corners are puckered when we turn this bag out. And you're going to go ahead and you will do the same with all the other 3 sides. Okay, so that's all done. So just double check that all of your threads match up at those corners, and then go ahead and trim all of the seams down to 1/4 inch. And now we need to square off our bottoms. So what you're going to do here is fold the sides to the short sides of the bottom. You're going to see that where we had our little notches cut out on our pattern pieces, they're going to match up perfectly where these corners are, as you can see here. Take this to the machine, and from where our stitches ended on the long sides, we're going to stitch from one side to the other, ending at those 1/2 inch stitches. This makes the perfect boxed bottom. Very important that you're matching up your sewing to where the stitch lines ended on the straight sides of the bottoms, and being very aware that you don't have any nips or tucks in your fabric, straightening it out, smoothing it out as you sew. So this is what that looks like. I like to go ahead and just kind of snip these corners without snipping the stitches. Go ahead and do that with the other 3 corners. So now that is all done. Kind of poke in to make sure there are no holes, that you made everything match up, and I did. And go ahead and turn your bag through the opening in the bottom of the bag. I won't lie, with vinyl, this was a little tough because this is a little small bag, but persistence got me through it. Well worth the effort. Well, once you finally finish birthing this, go ahead and poke out all your seams and all of your corners. You can see how perfect those corners turned out. I'm so happy with it. Massage all your seams into place. Make sure everything lined up good, and it did. And now we're going to close up the bottom of the bag. So what you're going to do is you are going to reach into the bag, unzip your zipper pocket, and pull out the lining of the zipper pocket with that opening that we left. Reach in there, pull that opening in the bottom of the bag through the zipper pocket, and clip that opening shut. Now we're going to go ahead and sew that closed with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Stuff that in the bag, double check that it is all sealed up. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and make sure the raw edges of your pocket are folded in, and top stitch your zipper pocket lining closed as well. This is my favorite way of finishing a bag, a birth style bag. Stuff your zipper pocket back in. And then all that's left to do is to attach your handles. And then we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all, folks. How much fun was that bag? She's such a quick sew, and she's just so adorable. So this was the bag that we did in the August 2022 Thursday sew along classes on the membership side. So if you wanted a slowed down view of how we made this in real time, you could definitely become a member on that side and see the past sew along replays with the chats if you like. That's always an option. Otherwise, please do go to my page on Facebook and share your pictures of Lola And yeah, I really do hope that you liked this tutorial. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And again, you can support my channel further by buying me a coffee if you like. That is down below in the description, or joining my monthly sew along classes. Anyways, until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Bye.